Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. I'm Lori, and I'm happy you're joining me today for the wrap-up of the Reading Rush Readathon that I participated in last week. It ran from Monday, the 20th of July to yesterday, Sunday, the 26th of July. Hopefully I'll get this filmed, edited, and uploaded by the end of day today, but I had an interesting experience with this readathon. You know, I had said that I wasn't doing as many readathons this year as I did last year, and part of the reason was because I felt like I flew through some of the books in the readathon realm last year, and that is true. And I also realized this week when I participated, this is the second one I think I've done this year so far. Week-long readathons are more prone to make that experience feel rushed and feel more like work. And so what ended up happening was I read 3 of the 7 titles that I chose, knowing that I never intended or believed I would read 7 books in a week. But I was starting to push myself in a way toward that 4th book that didn't feel quite comfy for me. So I'm going to talk about what I read first, and then I'll talk about what I started and didn't finish and what I want to add to be sure to finish in the next little while. I really, though, did enjoy most of the books that I finished, the 3 that I finished, and it gave me some noticing about what I'm liking right now, and it gave me a good, I felt good about the way that I ended the week. So here's how this played out. Prompt number 1 was read a book with the color of your birthstone on the cover. The Good Daughter was the book I chose for this prompt. I did not finish this. I got about 60 or so pages in, and I purposefully put it back down because I knew I wasn't going to finish it in the 3 days I had left. So it follows a girl who returns to Texas to be with her mom, and her mom, I think, goes missing. This is where I was kind of getting to. But in the meantime, the author introduces a bunch of characters, like in sequence, a lot of them, like probably 5 or 6 of them. And it was a lot for me to take in my head, so I just didn't stick with it. But I do plan to finish it. So it's not a DNF for me. It wasn't going to happen in the reading rush time frame. And I was rushing to try to read as many books as I could, as I said, and that wasn't working for me. Prompt number 2, I'm going to talk about in a minute. Prompt number 3 was to read a book that was inspired by a movie you'd seen. So I was going to choose either Mildred Pierce or Double Indemnity. I did reserve Double Indemnity at the library via video because I had not seen it. I didn't go pick it up. Didn't have time. I didn't start Mildred Pierce, so this was a non-starter for me in all 3 realms, but I do think I will take a look at this in the future because Double Indemnity is a mystery that I want to read, especially after reading 8 Perfect Murders. It's a classic mystery plot, I think. I just didn't have the bandwidth for it, and I'm sad about that because it was a short read. If I had picked that one, I might could have finished 4 books, but it didn't. Prompt number 4 was to read a book that was the first book you touched, and that also fulfilled prompt number 2, which was read a book with the word "the" in the title. So I finished The Shadows by Alex North, and it was the first book I saw when I signed into Scribd one day, so that was how I chose it. It's a fairly new release, never read Alex North before, had wanted to read both The Whisper Man and this book. I wasn't crazy about this one. I finished it, obviously, and yeah, it just didn't really do it for me. It was well written. The plot was developed pretty well, I would say. It did, for me, it was a little confusing, and maybe this would have been different if I had read the physical copy. The audiobook, it's a dual timeline, so you go from this man to his childhood, to his man self and his boy self a lot. And then there's a female narrator too. There's a female character in there. And I got really confused at times as to whether it was the man or the boy. And you could figure it out in a few minutes after you were listening to it and where they were and what context they were showing up. it just still could, it probably was delineated more effectively in the novel, physical form of the novel, than it was in the audio form of the novel. Also, I didn't really find myself caring too much about these characters, and I didn't really like get into the whole scary piece of it so much. I didn't find it really scary or creepy, and yeah, it was just okay. I gave it 3 stars because the writing was really good and there were no real like clunkers throughout in terms of that, but the actual story itself, plot, it was just okay for me. The 5th prompt was read a book entirely outside your house, and this was really hard for me to figure out how to do this, but I decided that the rules for me would be that I could only listen to it in the bedroom and in my office. So the actual living room, dining room, library, kitchen space, no. So that's how I ended up making that happen, and a little bit in the car, but I hadn't driven much last week at all. So I finished The Other People by C.J. Tudor. I had started that before, so that was a bit of a cheat for me, but it had been a while and I hadn't gotten very far into it. But I got back into it and finished it, and I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't like I thought it would be for me. I thought it would be a 5-star read, but it was good. It follows a man who discovers his child is in the car ahead of him, and she looks at him and says, "Help, Daddy," or "Daddy, help me," or something. And so it follows him searching for his child, and then it follows this other woman with her child, and there's a lot of there's another guy that's helping him, and so try to find his child, and so I won't go into a whole lot because I don't like to spoil anything, but it wasn't like I thought it would be, and yet I did enjoy it, and it was plausible, which I thought, for the most part, it was plausible, which I thought for a while it wouldn't be, based on something my daughter said about her perception of it, but I did like it. I'm glad I finished it. And again, I gave it 4 stars. So a satisfying read for sure. So then the last 2 prompts, prompt number 6 was read a book that is in a genre outside of what you really read. And number 7 was read a book set in a continent in which you don't live. This book fulfilled both of those. So I finished Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. I loved it. I really did. It was a quick read. I read it in 2 days, not one like I had thought, but I just didn't have the focus, energy that day to be able to do that. But I did enjoy it. It's a story of her time in the Islamic Revolution, growing up there and really understanding the politics of that place in Iran, and how her family's lives were affected by what was happening to other family members and friends, how their ability to access certain opportunities was restricted for a time, how scary it was. I really enjoyed this, and it did cement my desire to read more graphic novels. I gave it 4 stars. Now, the books I didn't get to, but I did start one of them, The Four Mrs. Bradwells by Meg Waite Clayton, which is in my car, and my car isn't here today because my partner took it to work, but I did start that. When I gave up on The Good Daughter, I picked up The Four Mrs. Bradwells, and I'm really enjoying it. I do plan to finish it. I just didn't want to push myself into that experience either. I didn't want to rush through it, so I didn't get that one completed. And then The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, didn't even start this. This was a non-starter, as Double Indemnity was, just because of here's what I've discovered. I like a readathon that goes a month long. And I usually will only pick 4 books, and I usually will be able to get those 4 books done, and I savor them and enjoy them, and I don't feel rushed and I don't feel pressured. And so bring on the month-long readathons for me. I'm not sure that the week-long readathons work the best, but I did have a good time. I did enjoy participating. I did not participate in any of the online challenges on Instagram. I didn't do any of that. I just didn't have really the commitment to doing that. But I did enjoy the reading space. So that was really the important piece for me, is that I enjoyed the work that I did, or the put in, and the reading, and enjoyed the novels that I read. I fulfilled more prompts than I thought I would. So I fulfilled essentially 5 of the 7 prompts if the books counted for more than one prompt, which of course is allowed. I got 3 books completely read, and I got about 110, 120 other pages read between the 4 Mrs. Bradwells and Ms. Bradwells, the 4 Ms. Bradwells and the Good Daughter. I counted a success. I enjoyed it. I'm kind of glad it's over and I can go back to just reading for pleasure and reading in a deliberate, kind of slow pacing way. But I appreciate all the work that is put into the reading rush, and I may do it next year. We'll just see. I may just only pick 3 books and then be happy with that. So let me know how you did, if you participated in the reading rush this year, and what books you finished and which prompts they fulfilled. I'm always curious about that. I have some vlogs to watch now that I didn't get a chance to do. Honestly, I could have read more if I had spent the weekend reading, but I decided after all the reading I had done during the week, I wanted to leave my weekend free for creating and being with my granddaughter and my grandson and my kids, and just really spending that time in a way that was not really reading. So I'm back to reading though today. Started back in last night reading an ebook, and I'm listening to an audiobook this morning. So I'm back in the groove. We shall see how the rest of the month plays out. So I'll do a monthly wrap up for you in a couple of days. And as always, happy reading. Bye.